Juliet Chesky, Decoding Fox News. I watch all the Fox News you'd never want to. This is a rare video podcast. I'm doing a video podcast because these clips really need to be seen to be believed. All of these clips are from Friday or a few days before Friday. This infamous, terrible, disastrous meeting between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Donald J. Trump. Now, these clips will tell the story. I don't need to tell them for you. This first series of clips I collected from earlier in the week. They're from Fox and Friends and Hannity. And this is people at Fox basically crowing, bragging that Donald J. Trump got peace with the Ukraine war in 3 weeks into his presidency. Now, these folks need to look at a calendar because we are 5 weeks into Donald J. Trump's presidency. But beyond that, for months, Trump kept bragging that he would end the war in Ukraine before he was even sworn in. He even said a few times that he would do it with a phone call, and he would do it based on his wonderful relationship with Volodymyr Zelensky and Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin, of course, being the president of Russia. Russia, of course, invaded Ukraine. That's this war that Donald J. Trump was going to magically end just through his brilliant negotiation skills. And we're about to see in the following clips I'm going to show you that his negotiating skills are absolute garbage. But again, this first series of clips are people bragging about this before it happened, which was probably a huge mistake. Here we go.
The Biden team. Essentially, after 3 years of war, Donald Trump and company really are wrapping it up in about 3 weeks.
So quickly.
Yeah. It's unbelievable.
Steve, you make an interesting point because remember the president said that he was going to get it done on day one. Of course, all the media outlets ran with that headline. But 1 day versus 3 weeks in the grand scheme of a war that's been over 3 years, I think the American people got the message.
Incredible.
So the first point, the rare earth minerals deal with Ukraine. What a genius. Historic move.
You know, in addition to taking 1 million questions, just look at the warp speed with which it looks like there's going to be some sort of a peace deal with Zelensky later on today. It took Joe Biden 3 years, got nothing. It took Trump essentially 3 weeks, and it could be paid. Yeah, no kidding. All right, Maddie, thank you very much.
I just love his response to that question from the reporter.
Because say that?
It just goes.
Did I call him a dictator?
And then the Trump smirk at the end. And this is what I was telling people from the very beginning. Don't panic. This is a negotiation going back and forth.
Absolutely.
And if you swing at the president, he's going to swing hard. But as he says, at the end of a fight, you hug it out. And he talked about his respect for Zelensky because guess what? The deal is now done and the fight is over.
It's incredible. What, a week ago, this deal didn't look like it was going to get done, and now it is. Zelensky's going to the White House this morning at 11.
So again, I don't know where they're coming up with 3 weeks since Donald J. Trump was sworn in on January 20th, 2025. And the date of this infamous meeting was yesterday, which was February 28th, 2025. And that's 5 weeks. 5 weeks. Feels like 5 years already, but it was only 5 weeks. So regardless, Trump's promises, his claims that his negotiation skills and his relationships with these two men were so amazing that he could wrap this up before he was even sworn in did not pan out. Now, this first clip I'm going to show you is from this disastrous meeting, and this is a collection of clips of Volodymyr Zelensky trying to explain to Trump his point of view and the fact that Putin cannot be trusted. Putin broke numerous ceasefires. Putin has threatened the Ukrainian people. Putin hates the Ukrainian people. Putin was the aggressor in this war. He tries very carefully to get all of these out, and you can sort of see him seething. You can see kind of the lid on the pot beginning to pop off as he's getting angrier and angrier through this series of interactions. So here we go.
But they are our friends, and they are our very supportive partners. They really gave a lot, Mr. President. They did.
They gave a lot, but they gave much less.
No.
Much less.
No. No. Yes. And Putin, the president, speaks about the people and the soldiers which are dying, but they came to our territory, they came to our land. They began this war, and they have to stop. Thank you.
One question for President Zelensky.
No.
Why don't you wear a suit? You're at the highest, why don't you wear a suit? You're at the highest level in this country's office, and you refuse to wear a suit. Just want to see if do you own a suit?
Yeah, problems.
A lot of Americans have problems with you not respecting the dignity of this office.
I will wear a costume after this war will finish. Ukraine, before my presidency, from the 2014, Putin broken 25 times. 25 times he broken his own signature. 25 times he broken ceasefire.
But he never broke to me. He never broke to me.
No, you were the president. You were the president during.
He never broke to me.
In 2016, you've been the president, Mr. President. You've been the president, but he had, of course, not with you, but he had during those period. He had conversations with our side, and we had Normandy format. You know, the France, Germany, Ukraine, and Russia, and he broken 25 times. That's why we will never accept just ceasefire. It will not work without security guarantees. Otherwise, Putin will never stop and will go further and further. He doesn't want. He hates us. You know, it's not about me. He hates Ukrainians. He thinks that we are not a nation. He thinks, and he shared these thoughts. I think maybe with your team also. I don't know. But
and who would protect those minerals if they are U.S. interests? Would that be Ukrainian forces?
They'll be protected. The agreement will protect them.
U.S.
The
forces?
agreement, yeah, we're signing an agreement.
Right, but what if Russia tries to invade, or there's Russian aggression in response?
I just told you, I don't think that's going to happen. And if that were going to happen, I wouldn't make a deal. If I thought that was going to happen, I wouldn't make a deal.
Some people may wonder why.
You know, they ought to focus on CNN on survival, not asking me these ridiculous questions.
So the reporter that asked that ridiculous question about Volodymyr Zelensky's clothing was Brian Glenn of Real America's Voice, which is sort of a Fox wannabe knockoff, low-rent version of Fox media company, and he happens to be dating Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. No kidding. Okay, so basically what you get from there is that Volodymyr Zelensky was trying desperately to get the point across to Trump that Vladimir Putin could not be trusted, and Trump didn't seem to care. Trump seems to think that this piece of paper that he signs, that Volodymyr Zelensky agrees to and Vladimir Putin agrees to, is going to be enough to hold the peace. I guess he doesn't know much about the history of Vladimir Putin. He could have listened to Zelensky, but he chose not to. Now, this next series of clips are Donald J. Trump insisting that he has not picked a side. He's not pro-Ukraine. He's not pro-Russia. He's in the middle. And this reminds me a lot of his "there were very fine people on both sides" nonsense that he claims. He wasn't saying that Nazis were good people, that he wasn't endorsing Nazis, and there's a lot of debate over it, but I think the clip speaks for itself.
We have tremendous death taking place as we speak, and I don't want to have that. You know, think of the parents, whether they're in Russia or Ukraine, think of the parents of all these people being killed needlessly.
they came to our territory.
Should have never started this as an arbitrator, as a mediator to a certain extent between two parties that have been very hostile. To put it mildly, they've been very hostile. There's been a vicious war. There's been a vicious war. You know, it's a very level battlefield, and those bullets go out, and as I've said many times, we were talking about it with Pete, many times the only thing stopping those bullets is a human body. And in the case we're talking about, generally young human bodies are stopping a lot of bullets. It's dead level. That's why it's great farmland. It's great land. It's great farmland, but there's very little protection against the bullets that are being, and other things that are being shot. So all I can do is see if I can get everybody at the table and get an agreement. And I think we're going to end up with an agreement. Otherwise, I wouldn't probably be even here today.
If you want to position yourself in the middle between Russia and Ukraine, or on the Ukraine side.
No, I'm in the middle. I want to solve this thing. I'm for both. I want to get it solved. And I've known him for a long time. I've dealt with him for a long time. He had to suffer through the Russia hoax. You know, Russia was a hoax. It was all Biden. It was nothing to do with him. So he had to suffer through that, and he was able to do that. I think that he wants to make a deal, and he'd like to see it end. That's all I do. That's what I do. My whole life, that's what I do, is make deals. If I didn't align myself with both of them, you'd never have a deal. You want me to say really terrible things about Putin and then say, "Hi, Vladimir, how are we doing on the deal?" That doesn't work that way. I'm not aligned with Putin. I'm not aligned with anybody. I'm aligned with the United States of America. And for the good of the world, I'm aligned with the world. And I want to get this thing over with. You see the hatred he's got for Putin. It's very tough for me to make a deal with that kind of hate. He's got tremendous hatred. And I understand that, but I can tell you the other side isn't exactly in love with, him either.
So as you can tell in the previous clip, it's very obvious that Donald J. Trump is showing deference and sympathies towards Vladimir Putin and Russia. He says that Putin suffered, greatly during the Russia hoax, as if Putin actually cared about any of that. And he also acts as if this conflict is somehow equal, that both sides are to blame for this, war breaking out in Eastern Europe, which that's absolutely absurd. Russia basically decided that it wanted to erase Ukraine from the map, make Ukrainians Russian, and completely destroy their culture and destroy their country. And so he basically invaded Ukraine. And in the case of civilian casualties, Ukraine has suffered thousands of civilian casualties, and Russia has suffered a scant amount of civilian casualties on its border, mostly. Another thing that's happened here that Trump's completely negating is that Russia has hit civilian targets repeatedly throughout Ukraine. Hospitals, schools, shopping centers, train stations, you name it, have been completely destroyed. There have been really no attempt to reduce the amount of civilian casualties. Apartment buildings have been hit. It's been absolutely horrific. And here's Trump saying he's not going to pick a side and that they both hate each other, that sort of thing. So this next clip is J.D. Vance basically accusing Volodymyr Zelensky of not trying diplomacy first. And I've watched this clip several times. It appears that J.D. Vance, or I should say, Vice President J.D. Vance, as much as I hate saying that, I'm being sarcastic when I say love saying that. It appears when I've watched this clip multiple times that he's trying to suck up to Donald J. Trump, because he's saying, well, Donald J. Trump has tried diplomacy and you haven't. And this is after Volodymyr Zelensky has said repeatedly that Vladimir Putin doesn't honor ceasefires.
The path to peace and the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the President of the United States' words mattered more than the President of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
Can I ask you?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So he occupied our parts, big parts of Ukraine, part of East and Crimea. So he occupied it on 2014. So during a lot of years, so I'm not speaking about just Biden, but those time was Obama, then President Obama, then President Trump, then President Biden, now President Trump, and God bless, now President Trump will stop him. But during 2014, nobody stopped him. He just occupied and took. He killed people. You know what the contact line?
2015.
2014.
2014 and 2014.
2014.
Yeah. So
I was not here.
Yeah, but
that's exactly right.
Yes, but during 2014 till 2022, the situation the same. The people have been dying on the contact line. Nobody stopped him. You know that we had conversations with him, a lot of conversations, my bilateral conversation, and we signed with him, me, like a new president. In 2019, I signed with him the deal. I signed with him, Macron and Merkel, we signed ceasefire. Ceasefire. All of them told me that he will never go. We signed him with gas contract. Yes, but after that, he broken this ceasefire. He killed our people and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about?
The clip is rather heartbreaking in many ways because it shows Volodymyr Zelensky desperately trying to get across why Vladimir Putin cannot be trusted. He says, look, our land was invaded in 2014, and he's talking about Crimea. And if you notice, Donald J. Trump in that clip says 2015, because Donald J. Trump doesn't know what he's talking about. And it took an assist with J.D. Vance also to correct Donald J. Trump before he sort of just shrugs his shoulders like, whatever. But then Volodymyr Zelensky explains that, look, in 2019, I had an agreement with France's Emmanuel Macron, and then the leader of Germany, which was Angela Merkel, and they got together and they brokered this deal, and Putin signed it, and he broke it. Pretty much as soon as he signed it, he broke it. And that's what he's trying to get across. So he's like, what are you talking about diplomacy? And then, again, this is after he said Putin has broken 25 different ceasefire agreements. Now we're about to hit the fight. So this is where it gets really testy. Now the full length of this fight is about 10 minutes, and I've broken this down to about 2 minutes because I was putting this on social media, and you can't put a 10-minute clip on social media, not on most platforms. So I made this into kind of the highlight reel of the fight. If you want to watch the full fight, you can see it on YouTube. It's absolutely devastating because Donald J. Trump just looks like a crazed bully who has no idea what he's talking about. He's quite cruel. He's quite vicious towards Volodymyr Zelensky. This is a man, again, who did nothing wrong, who had his country invaded by a brutal dictator who has killed countless civilians. So here's the clip. It's not nice. It's not pleasant to watch. Here we go.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country, that's backed you far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once? This entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, have you said thank you? You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war,
He's not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Stupid president, $350 billion. We gave you military equipment, and your men are brave, but they had to use our military.
What about
if you didn't have
thank you,
I said a lot of times to American people.
Except that there are disagreements.
You know, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go, and I wanted this. Look, a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Ask our people about ceasefire, what they think.
That wasn't with me.
For you what,
that wasn't with me. That was with a guy named Biden who was not a smart person. Obama gave sheets and Trump gave javelins. You got to be more thankful.
She's asking, what if Russia breaks the ceasefire?
What if anything? What if a bomb drops on your head right now? Okay? What if they broke it? I don't know. They broke it with Biden because Biden, they didn't respect him. They didn't respect Obama. They respect me. Let me tell you, Putin went through a hell of a lot with me. He went through a phony witch hunt where they used him and Russia. Russia. You ever hear of that deal? That was a phony Hunter Biden, Joe Biden scam. Hillary Clinton, he might have broken deals with Obama and Bush, and he might have broken them with Biden. He did, maybe. Maybe he didn't. I don't know what happened. But he didn't break him with me.
So that clip is incredibly difficult to watch because basically Donald J. Trump, I think, genuinely believes that his relationship with Vladimir Putin is so amazing that Vladimir Putin would never dare break a ceasefire while Donald J. Trump is president. Now, Vladimir Putin is the same man who has shot down commercial airlines and afterward basically said, oops, my bad. More than once this has happened. More than once. Not to mention, they flooded parts of Ukraine, killing hundreds of people, destroying entire communities. They've targeted nuclear power plants more than once. They've hit the electrical grid multiple times to try to freeze Ukrainians during the winter. They've been absolutely vicious. The Russians have kidnapped Ukrainian children and given them to Russian families as a method to deprogram them and make them into Russian children. This battle has been absolutely brutal, and our president, the president of the United States, seems to care more about his relationship with Vladimir Putin than the civilians of Ukraine or the rest of Europe. Because as most people think, I don't think, Vladimir Putin's going to stop at Ukraine if he's able to accomplish his goals in Ukraine. So I also want to add a little caveat here that was made. People noticed, and it was outrageous. And in normal circumstances, this would be enough for a scandal. You would need the fight. But there was a Russian media service called TASS, T-A-S-S, that was in the Oval Office during this fight. How did Russian state media get in the Oval Office? How was this approved? I have no idea, but they were there recording this. So yes, even though Trump can't handle the Associated Press, which is a cornerstone of international journalism, because the Associated Press refuses to use a Gulf of America for the Gulf of Mexico because Trump didn't actually officially rename the international body of water. He's barred them from the Oval Office, but we have a Russian state media company there. I don't know what's going on with Trump and Russia, but this is terrible. Now, the next clip that we're going to move on to is the Five, and these are some reactions from Fox pundits on the Five discussing what just happened.
Don't fly here and get all emotional. We run the world. This is America's world. He's our proxy. This ends when we say it ends.
He would resign if it meant that they could get into NATO, right? And then are you comfortable with an American president saying Putin went through a hell of a lot with me?
What we saw there was a pissed off Trump. So you have somebody, and it's been going on for a long time, where you have this person who is bilking the American taxpayers for hundreds of billions of dollars, and most Americans can't really tell you what our interest is over there.
Can I just add to that about the money and all of this? Obviously, we have given them a ton of money, but 70% of the aid that we have sent to Ukraine has then been spent back in America. So when
he says Zelensky wants to fight, I think that's what people saw him doing in the Oval Office.
The fact that he was arguing with the President of the United States and the Vice President in front of cameras in the Oval Office showed so much disrespect. And he's like a freshman out there when you think about it. He doesn't really know what's happening. This war just hit him in the face, and he's trying to survive.
As a percentage of GDP, we rank 17th in terms of how much we've given them. That
percentage, shermanage,
no,
it's a lot of money.
This is what diplomacy looks like, right? Taking out root canals and coming to agreements with the different alignments and different values is not always pretty.
We had a meeting today, as you know, with President Zelensky, and I would say it didn't work out exactly great from his standpoint. I think he very much overplayed his hand. President Putin is going to want to make, and he wants to end it. And you saw what I saw today. This is a man that wants to get us signed up and keep fighting.
I mean, we've been so eager all day to watch this interview at 6 o'clock today anyway, and now it's on steroids, crack cocaine. I'm very eager to, even more eager.
Why did they not invite Zelensky to come sit down with them?
I am sick of this war.
Jessica Tarloff, the liberal on the Five, is basically the shining star in that clip. She gets out the fact that when she says 70% of what we've sent to Ukraine comes back to the U.S. economy, most of that is in the form of U.S. defense contractors. So basically, when we make weapons for Ukraine, they're made here in the United States, and that is providing jobs, capital, revenue, the whole 9 yards. So, and in terms of percentage of our GDP that we are spending towards Ukraine, we are very low on the list. The tiny Baltic states that border Russia, they're up near Scandinavia. They're 3 little countries right next to Finland. They are spending an enormous amount of their GDP to help Ukraine. Poland has spent a lot to help Ukraine. Basically, all of the countries that have been harassed and invaded by Russia before desperately do not want Russia to gain more power and more leverage here. So that she brilliantly played there. And she also commented that, hey, why don't you let Zelensky in on these negotiations? All of these are very good points. Now, what that very last clip right before we got to Jesse Waters saying, I'm sick of this war, was Charlie Hurt is talking about an interview that was already planned on Special Report with Bret Baier, which was on at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And Volodymyr Zelensky, even though he had that brush up with Donald J. Trump and the lunch was canceled, he went ahead and did the interview. And most of this clip that I'm about to show you is Volodymyr Zelensky trying to plead his case. And I did include a little bit of Bret Baier. And basically, one thing that I want to point out that it gets pressed a lot in these clips is they keep talking about how he disrespected Donald J. Trump. And again, this is Donald J. Trump, the same man who uses profanity often, personally insults people, and acts completely out of the realm of normal decorum for any American politician. So that's a little rich, personally. I just think it's kind of ridiculous that we're saying, oh, you insulted someone. I don't care if somebody disrespects the United States. I care more about the fact that millions of lives could be at stake here.
Good evening to all your country, to all Americans. I'm very thankful to to Americans for all your support. You did a lot. I'm thankful to President Trump and to Congress bipartisan support. And I was always very thankful from all our people. You helped us a lot from the very beginning during 3 years of full scale. I'm speaking like a president of a people who are in the struggle 3 years, and they just want to hear that America on our side and that America will stay with us, not with Russians, with us.
He's looking to go on and fight. He wants to come back right now, but I can't do that.
What do you make of that? Do you want to continue fighting? Do you want peace? And if he had the opportunity to go back to the White House right now, would you do it?
No. First of all, we want peace. That's why I'm in the United States. That's why I visited President Trump. Russians came to our territory, you know it. Russians came to our houses, and everybody knows, everybody saw it, video, images, a lot of things. They killed so many people. Just to forget it, just to say that Putin is a great guy? No, without us.
Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican from South Carolina, he has been a big proponent of you and of Ukraine, said this today after the meeting.
I have never been more proud of the president. I was very proud of J.D. Vance, standing up for our country. We want to be helpful. What I saw in the Oval Office was disrespectful, and I don't know if we can ever do business with Zelensky again.
Be correct with this number. When you say about the number, each person is important. When you say about 1 million of losses, we don't have any million of losses. Just when you speak about the territories, maybe some territories and etc., it's not just territory, it's houses, it's people's lives. You know, their fathers, mother, their relatives, grandfather, they died or during this war. Nobody wants to forgive Putin.
So I'm not hearing from you, Mr. President, a thought that you owe the president an apology.
I almost did an edit just of Brett Baer's questions because I found them so insipid and ridiculous. But I would rather focus on other things. One thing, though, that we did see in that last clip was Volodymyr Zelensky talks about numbers. And he basically is saying, well, why can't we get the numbers right? He says, you're saying, and I think he's referring to Trump there from what I can tell. He says, you're telling me that we've lost millions of lives. We haven't lost millions of lives. And during the longer discussion that's almost an hour long in the Oval Office, there are times when Trump does the Trump thing where he starts repeating stuff he's read on right-wing media that's not accurate about the Ukraine war. And Volodymyr Zelensky's trying to correct him. He's staring at him funny. He's saying, no, no, no. There's a couple times he does attempt to correct President Trump when he says, no, millions haven't died. So I think part of the frustration that we're seeing in that interview with Brett Baer and that we saw in the Oval Office was Zelensky trying to get across that Trump just wasn't being accurate, wasn't being factual, was just doing his usual exaggerated hyperbole about something that he didn't really understand, which is incredibly alarming, all things considered. So we're going to move on to Laura Ingraham in this next clip. Now, Laura Ingraham started her entire program by playing Hit the Road Jack, which is, I thought, incredibly cringe considering, again, thousands of people have died in Ukraine. A lot of civilians have died in Ukraine. Maternity hospitals were bombed in Ukraine. I think we remember those horrible images. Schools, shopping malls, the whole nine yards. And she's playing Hit the Road Jack as if it's hilarious that Volodymyr Zelensky and Trump had this brush up. But for copyright reasons, I don't include it because if I put that on YouTube, it would get flagged and there'd be problems. But here we go. This is Laura Ingraham's take on this fiasco.
Today was the day that the pro-Ukraine war hawk crowd lost their cause. But any leader, especially a leader who's received, what, about $250 billion? Who's counting? In aid, in arms, and humanitarian aid from the United States, enters the White House and then disrespects the president. Well, then you can bet that the 77 million Americans who voted for Donald Trump will not support any further engagement. Caroline, Susan Rice and others tonight have said that this was an ambush, a setup, that this was the plan all along for Vance and Trump to go at him and create this drama. Russia, 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 a broken record. It's been skipping. Hear it? Since 2015. I have been on Trump Force One together, and to see this exchange. I'm sorry, but I enjoyed every minute because it was classic Trump, classic Vance, and Zelensky cannot read the room, can't read the country, forget the room.
And I also have golfed with President Trump from time to time. Today for Zelensky, this was a gimme. This was a one-foot putt.
But he arrived today, and the president had eyes on him.
Well, you know, Laura, President Trump doesn't miss much, including whether one is properly dressed for the occasion. Trump was trying to be gracious, Laura, and a gracious host. But honestly, when you're coming in for a peace deal, put a suit on. He used to wear suits. A suit is not a costume. His War Greens regalia, that's a costume.
Elon Musk doesn't wear suits either, we should say, and also wears hats and T-shirts in the Oval Office. But that's kind of his. He's not asking for money. He's volunteering. Yeah, and he's volunteering his services.
But Vladimir Putin is laughing to the bank today. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
So the key comment in there is that's the one clip that I got where somebody mentioned ambush. And as somebody who watched this entire exchange more than once, I've gone through it probably about 3 times now, I definitely think it looked like an ambush. Now, I don't think they anticipated how this would end. For me, it looked more like Donald J. Trump and J.D. Vance thought, if we make this public, if we get this out there in front of cameras, Volodymyr Zelensky will be cowed and just go along with whatever we say, and we'll look like these big heroes. Now, I can't read their minds. I don't know what was going on with their motivations, but that's what it looked like to me. Kind of like when a couple breaks up in a restaurant and one half of the couple knows that the other half is going to maybe get dramatic, so they do it in a public place and they try to smooth it out thinking, well, now we're surrounded by all these people, and if I break up with this person, they're not as likely to start screaming or freaking out. You know, that's something, this is how it came across to me. Like, if we make this public, we put the cameras there, we get the press there, Volodymyr Zelensky will just go along to get along, and we'll look like these big tough guys. And that's not at all what happened. I don't know if they were trying to elicit that type of reaction or not. That's even harder to know, but it definitely looked like this was a setup of some sort. I also want to add that I was so glad that somebody finally mentioned that Elon Musk also dresses in non-conventional ways for someone in the White House. Even though it was Laura Ingraham of all people to say it, she did say it. And it is true, because Elon Musk does dress, I would say, absolutely inappropriately. Volodymyr Zelensky's at war, he's dressed as if he's at war. Elon Musk just dresses like an idiot. I don't know what to describe the goofy hats and the t-shirts and all of it. Children on his shoulders. Anyway, we're moving on to, this is Jesse Watters Primetime, and Jesse Watters pushes the same idea of this is our world, we get to do whatever we want, this horrible, hideous, sort of regressive, kind of disgusting attitude about the United States being a bully to the rest of the world.
Well, today was interesting. Zelensky went to the White House and met the fashion police. We're not doing a security deal with Ukraine. That's why they're not getting into NATO. NATO doesn't want them in NATO. That's a trap. That's going to trigger World War III. Ukraine's in no position to negotiate terms. We're in charge. We'll tell Zelensky what the terms are. I would too. But Russia invaded under Bush, under Obama, under Biden. Putin never invaded under Trump. And Trump's saying, I'm the guarantee. And if we have Americans in Ukraine excavating minerals, that's a double guarantee. American presidents for decades cut arms deals with the Soviets. Does that make us Russian puppets?
So insulting to the United States of America. Look, this is one of the great moments in the history of American diplomacy. The way that President Trump and J.D. Vance stood up for American interests on the world stage, the way that President Trump defended Americans after years of being fleeced and abused and taken advantage of and taken for granted, millions of American hearts swelled with overflowing pride today to watch President Trump put Zelensky in his place and venerate this man as a messianic figure. Americans have watched with horror as Zelensky's been treated as a messiah. He couldn't even say thank you.
No.
Just couldn't say thank you. Thank you, America.
And that's like diplomacy 101. That's what they tell you to say on the plane. You're about to meet the president. He loves to hear thank you. The American people need to hear that. Say that right away.
So I just want to point out that the same day that this happened, somebody on X, also known as Twitter, I just call it Twitter because that's what it is. It's still Twitter as far as I'm concerned. collected a bunch of times the same day that Volodymyr Zelensky was getting support from international leaders all over the world who'd helped out Ukraine, and Volodymyr Zelensky was thanking them for their help. Has given thanks to this country multiple times in multiple ways. So that's a bit ridiculous that they keep bringing this up. You're not thankful enough. Now, I want to add that nobody's brought this up yet on Fox, but Donald J. Trump likes to fancy himself as this brilliant negotiator. The Art of the Deal, which was a book that he wrote that was a bestseller, he didn't actually write it. There was a ghostwriter who wrote it, who's been very vocally critical of Donald J. Trump and has said that the man was a sociopath and he regrets writing the book, and he was very aggressively anti-Trump the first time Trump ran for president. So that happened. And I would say that anybody watching that clip, the fight in the Oval Office, would never call Donald J. Trump a good negotiator. Basically, he gets completely emotional. He starts yelling. He starts getting defensive. He makes excuses. Instead of keeping his calm and keeping his cool and trying to actually pivot and navigate the situation, he makes it worse. He accelerates it. He makes it more heightened. And then, no skilled negotiator would do this. He kicks Volodymyr Zelensky out of the White House. He just kicks him out. He's like, I'm done with you. And there's no agreement is signed. Absolutely nothing happens at the end, except for he whines to the press. That's Trump whines to the press. And Volodymyr Zelensky goes on Brett Baier. So how is he a brilliant negotiator? He's a fraud. This man is a complete fraud. Now, this last series of clips is from Hannity, and you can kind of guess how this is going to go.
President Trump graciously invited him to the White House for a key minerals deal that he promised to sign, and President Trump instructed Zelensky to come back when he's ready for peace. And by the way, if there is a next time, you might want to put on that suit. President Trump was the only guy that would be able to get Putin to the negotiating table now.
And that's really what he wanted to talk about again and again, which was the security guarantee, which, listen, he said it probably 5, 6, 7 times in my interview.
The problem, Sean, is that the people he feels most comfortable with and akin to have no power to help him, and that's Europe and the out-of-power Democrats. And the people who can help him, he doesn't feel comfortable with, and that's Donald Trump. Finish, Sean. He should take a notebook from Benjamin Netanyahu. The Biden administration was very hostile to him.
And yet we have our patently dishonest and lazy media again claiming that President Trump is on the side of Russia, to your point. And by the way, would it kill Zelensky to wear a suit when he goes to the Oval Office? This guy looked like he was about to go raise the roof at a discotheque in Budapest.
Trump has been in office for, 45 days-ish now? And he's already on the precipice of ending this war. Trump is being eminently reasonable. He's trying to avoid war. He is the good guy here.
And with that last clip, we kind of go full circle there. That's Clay Travis from Outkick, basically, again, falsely claiming that Trump is ending a war that is still very much ongoing. And yes, it might be 45 days into his administration, but the war is still not over. And again, that would be 5 weeks, not 3. Thank you for listening. It's very rare when I do a video podcast because these take a lot more work and effort than a regular podcast. And I'm usually holding on for dear life to finish the regular podcast. I have no assistant. I have no intern. This is a newsroom of one, although not one. I want to share with you someone who got on my lap right here in the last couple of clips, and that would be Odin. That's Odin, the goth boy poet. That's one of the podcast mascots, making a rare cameo. He kind of always looks like that. I call it resting goth face. Always very dramatic there, Odin. Very dramatic. He's a mama's boy. Thor was just on the desk. He just jumped down. He's a tiny tuxedo. He's very active. He's my adventure cat. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to become a paid subscriber or paid supporter, that is how I keep Decoding Fox News going. There's no large sponsor. There's no rich parents. There's no corporation. There's no grant. It's hundreds of people supporting Decoding Fox News. Most do so for $5 a month, $55 for the year. And then we also have a founding member level that Substack set up at $168. You can also go to Patreon and support Decoding Fox News that way. All the levels get the same thing because I'm overworked and I can kind of only get certain things out. But I can't do multiple levels. I die. I'm massively overworked. All paid sponsors and paid subscribers get exclusive content. that is just for people who help support this media company going. Thank you so much for your support. You can also find my work here on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, although not as much. I think I got them all. Blue Sky, of course. Blue Sky, the new one. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you for supporting Decoding Fox News, and I will see you at the next podcast.